55-pound title fighters. First, fighting out of the Farmers Insurance, Thomas Swiss in the red corner. From Trials, mixed martial arts in Fort Collins, Colorado. Be ready. Before you start, come on, legal 55-pound title, Jason Brown. And now, fighting out of the last contact of blue corner. From Team Wild Man, Firestone, Colorado. It's the challenger, please. Make welcome, Matt Johnson. This professional weight 55-pound title bout is scheduled for 3 5-minute rounds. The referee is Stephen Blair.
Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, co-main event of the evening, a 155-pound professional title fight. Jason Brown wearing the flag-style trunks representing Trials MMA, facing off against Matt Johnson, who's wearing the black and yellow trunks. Mr. Johnson, a Team Wildman fighter. Brown always in exceptional shape, as is Johnson. And Johnson, that man has no idea what a boring fight is. Johnson out of the Team Wildman camp. I'd have to say one of the more resilient fighters in Colorado. It's just one of those fighters that you can never count out of a bout. And Jason Brown coming in looking like he's about 2 weight classes above tonight. Wow, how this guy made 155 is a secret to me. Johnson always able to put his wrestling on display in his bouts, but this evening looks like he's wanting to show some striking and fast hands by Johnson there. Brown, however, shows his skill level by way of being able to evade, looking like he saw everything coming. Nice leg kick set up by the footwork as well as the punching of Johnson. Brown stalking around the cage. Little blood on the bridge of the nose of Johnson, but as we heard one of the fighters say earlier, that's one of those things that just tends to wake him up. Nice check there by Brown. Johnson, a lot of movement tonight. There Johnson goes to put some of his wrestling on display. Of course, coming out of the Trials camp, wrestling defense going to be well in effect for Jason Brown. Very upright stance for Matt Johnson. Just a tiny bit of a height advantage, I think. At least when he's in his fight stance. And I say that only because it's just a little bit unusual for somebody that has such a strong wrestling game to be standing that tall. But again, that just speaks to how well his wrestling game is, because he knows that he can get into that mode any moment that he needs to. Left hand made contact for Johnson. Brown able to evade the following right.
Halfway, Jason, halfway.
Solid leg kick for Brown. He's been working that hard this evening. Money in the bank, as they call it. Little something to have in reserve for later on is knowing that you've got a target on your opponent that's a little bit beat up. Of course, takes away some of the footwork, speed, mobility, and power. And Brown, good job with being evasive on the distance, but Johnson now able to close in. I think Brown's been stung a little bit. Johnson senses it, looking to close in here, swinging hard as Johnson, but he, being wise, not closing in too much. And Johnson initiates the clinch here. Breaks one hand free, continues to fire away with the punches. Brown trying to hold the clinch, wants to keep Johnson close. Good knee up the middle for Brown. Now Johnson trying to find that takedown. Brown splays the legs. Matt Johnson going to try to switch it off here to a single and then goes back to punching. And corner of Johnson calling for elbows, and he comes across the top nicely. Now Brown gets a couple of solid shots in. And Johnson looking to set up a flying knee. Partially the reason I know that is because I saw him working it in the warm-up area. And looking like he's going to try to fake grabbing the clinch and then come in with the flying knee. And both fighters, brutal leg kicks. About 30 seconds left here in round number one, and Matt Brown bloodied up, wearing the effects of it. And again, Johnson has success with the striking, closes in, goes for the ground and pound, does Johnson. Brown just covering up now. Referee Stephen Blaya taking a close look at it. It's a professional fight, so he'll let the fighter take some damage. 10-second clacker sounded. Johnson going to continue striking here. Brown trying to hold on to get out of round number one. There's the bell. We'll come back with the second. Three 5-minute rounds in the professional MMA division here. When you're on the ground, you're able to... when you're on the ground, you're able to land with the point of the elbow, which actually I guess you can do standing as well. And while you are standing, you are able to land with knees to the head here in the professional division. So those two striking rules, as well as it being 5-minute rounds, is what makes the difference between professionals and amateurs. Well, that and a paycheck, of course. And Brown eats a hard leg kick, but answers it nicely with left and right. And Johnson has to back off just a little bit and take account of what's going on. Only for a moment, though, as Johnson now steps forward. These guys both looking for a fist fight here. Former IFL fighter Ryan Schultz in the corner of Brown, saying he's happy with what's going on here early in round number two. Johnson, palm against the face, keeping his cover up. And Brown, one more time, goes to the well with that leg kick. These guys both going to have a limp before morning comes around. Corner of Brown, asking for more movement. Want him to be light on his feet and mobile, and a beautiful hook, lands for Brown. And then he checks the kick. Johnson doing a nice job keeping his back off the cage. He'll get pressured backward 1 or 2 steps, but then he always makes certain that he circles, never letting himself be a stationary target. Talked about it all afternoon long. Speaks well to the training. Some just really tremendous camps here in Colorado, and 2 of the premier ones in the cage right now. Johnson jams Brown into the cage. Good knee for Brown. Johnson going to try to wrap up the double leg here. If that's not going to work, he does have a nice single leg or high crotch lift in his arsenal as well. And Brown doing a good job with his footwork, not letting Johnson get where he wants to be as far as takedown attempts, and then shoulder to shoulder in the clinch. And now Brown, momentarily anyway, had the body lock. And Brown, very nice job this evening, keeping his hands busy in the clinch. Never using the clinch to take a rest. A lot of fighters enter that clinch, just try to work the lean, try to drain some energy out of their opponent, but Brown using it as a place to work even harder. Brown not able to get his hips off the cage here. Johnson continues to work busy with the hands. Good job with the wrist control by Brown, not allowing Johnson to reach around the waist or around the knees and affect that double leg takedown. And have a good view of it here. A lot of those uppercuts, even though they don't have full power on them, they're scoring for Johnson. Brown, good job evading the single leg. And immediately Brown looks to step forward and engage again. And both these guys bloodied up, wearing the tail of this battle, and that lead leg of Johnson is affected now. He's having a hard time putting weight on that. Swings forward hard there, does Johnson, and Johnson now answers with the leg kick. And again, you have to know that lead leg of Brown is hurting, but Johnson is the one that seems to have taken the worst of the leg kicks and is having to adjust his footwork a little bit because of it. Johnson was a little bit staggered. Second to last leg kick that Brown threw, and mouthpiece comes out. Referee Stephen Blea going to call a timeout, and we'll let that mouthpiece be reinserted. And back to punchy kicky we go. And the crowd getting into it now. And again, Brown scores with the leg kick. Johnson having a hard time dealing with that. Good uppercut to the body lands for Johnson, and Johnson stalking forward. Closing the distance. Johnson with the knee up the middle. And Brown covering up a little bit here. Back against the cage for Brown. Johnson trying to get that single leg again. Brown, nice job keeping the double leg out of play. There's a 10-second clacker. See if Johnson's able to get this takedown that he wants. Put an emphatic stamp on the end of the round. Nope, looks like Brown's going to be able to keep it standing. We're coming back with the third. Little cleanup in the cage here. Referee Stephen Blea calls the fighters to the center for the third round. Co-main event, 155-pound professional title fight. Brown in the flag style trunks. Johnson in the black and yellow Team Wildman trunks. Johnson scores first. Good overhand right. Sounded solid. Brown seemingly unaffected. Maybe just skipped off as he was trying to turn his head away from it. As he did in round number 2, Johnson doing a very nice job of keeping his hands busy. Even if he's not putting a punch out there, he's moving his hands, letting Brown know, if you come forward, I got something to meet you in. Brown had tremendous success with the leg kicks in round number 2. Brown stunned here a little bit. Johnson senses it. Goes to the body, does Johnson. Brown covering up so he can see the punches coming, but he eats a couple of hard knees. And Brown knocked down here. Let's see if Johnson can put together a fight-ending flurry. Nice work by Brown, tying up the upper body. Guard into play for Jason Brown now. Like I said, as well as tying up the upper body. Johnson not having the distance that he wants to get those strikes off, and this is a chance for Brown to recover from the strikes. He's obviously still taking some damage and burning a lot of energy here, but at least able to gather his wits a little bit. Momentarily looked like he was going to try to pivot for the armbar was Brown, and again trying to set that up, but Johnson aware of it. High guard now for Brown, again just trying to shut down the posture and the mobility of Johnson, as well as using the handcuff position. Johnson able to sneak an arm free, comes over the top with elbows. Good sweep by Brown. Johnson tried for the knee slicer guard pass. Brown saw it coming, got the roll, ends up in half mount. Johnson continues to work his hands from the bottom. He hasn't let his hands stop moving since the bell rang to start this fight. Now it's Johnson's turn to have control over the posture of his opponent. Brown not able to pop his head free, not able to arch his back up. And almost a little bit of a cage grab there for Johnson as he's trying to get his back against cage, see if he can't bring himself to standing, but now it's Brown looking to pin a wrist to the mat and go to work with his left hand. Johnson trying to pivot, get his feet on the cage, see if he can effect a back roll. Good positional control here by Brown. First time in the fight that he's been on top, and he's using it to good effect here, but Johnson continuing to work well with his striking. Got a nice series of elbows there into the side of the head of Mr. Brown. And as I talked about in the beginning of the fight, there is just no quit in Matt Johnson. Here, pinned on his back, eating a little bit of ground and pound, continues to try to work his way out from the bottom, continues to try to work his strikes, but it's Brown coming up, looking to transition to back control, and good position here for Brown. He's trying to sink the rear naked choke. Johnson not letting it get under his chin yet, and Johnson's okay here, trying to push that elbow up, and able to do so, so at least momentarily Johnson out of trouble. Brown swims through from the other side. Goodness hooks into a better position. Johnson able to slide down here. Brown going to try to transition off to something else, but it's Johnson that able to work inside the back control and ends up being inside the guard now of Jason Brown. So Johnson momentarily endangered there, maintained his composure, hung tough, worked his escape, and ends up in a dominant position. 30 seconds left in the fight. Corner of Brown saying you got to go to work here. Brown starting to work his hands off the bottom, but Johnson able to keep him pinned pretty flat. In the corner of Johnson, I think, signaling they want him to stand up. And back to their feet we go. Oh, and a slip there by Johnson. 10-second clacker sounded. And a crushing right hand lands for Brown. And toe-to-toe they go. Johnson staggered here. The bell ends the fight. We're going to the judges.
After 3 rounds, we got the judges' scorecards. Judge Ramirez scores about 29-28. Judge Hilsebeck scores about 30-27. And Judge Mann scores about 30-27. Declaring a winner by unanimous decision. News for the Sean, in the cage with Matt. You'll always find yourself in these grinders that just go on forever, man. I'm going to hand you the microphone. You're probably a little out of breath, but I know you got a spiel, you always do. We'll put 3 minutes on the clock and go.
I'll make this quick and easy, guys. Hey, big shout out to my team. Thomas Wagner and Denny, Professor Sean Stewart, Andy Perez, Anthony, Brett, Clay, Jorge, Ricky in the center. Love you guys. Sponsors, Got a couple new ones, sorry. My commercial sheet metal, my job, ground workout. Hey, my uncle-in-law, John Burks, Burks Bail Bonds. My new one, Innovate. And the last one, Easy Trim.